Hi, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 40 of Power Networking Media's weekly feature program, Spotlight on Small Business. Thanks for taking a moment to like this YouTube video and to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm your host, Moshe Klein. Spotlight introduces you to successful small business owners who share content and information that you don't want to miss. Today, I'm especially pleased to welcome my friend, networking partner, and my professional colleague, CPA certified public accountant, John Jones. John, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on, Moshe.
You know, it's a pleasure. I always love talking business, but obviously, since I'm an accountant, you're a tax professional, we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to have to try to condense it into about 10 minutes, but let's jump into one topic that I've had on my mind. And with your permission, I want to pick your brain and try to share some information with our viewers who are mostly small business owners. The thing I want to ask you about, John, today is, since it is tax season, what does one do when you get a letter from the IRS? Like me, I'm sure you've gotten calls from clients, John. Some of them are even so scared they can't open the letter and they need advice. Sometimes those letters contain good news. You're getting a refund. We found money that we owe you. But most of the time it's the other way around. So I'm going to let you pick up from there, John. Somebody calls you and says, John, I got a letter from the IRS. What should they do?
Well, you mentioned the first step, which is to open it.
Yes.
Now, frequently I run into new clients and they bring in a stack of letters and they're unopened. And sometimes there was some really important news in those letters. Had you opened them earlier, some bad things could have been avoided or the amounts of money could have been reduced. So the number one thing is to open it, read it, and act on it. And if you don't understand the letter, then you need to talk to an accountant or someone who does. But by opening the letter and being proactive about it, you're going to almost always reduce the amount of damage that can occur. So the first thing is, after you open the letter and you read it and it says there's an amount due, you always have to remember a very high percentage of IRS notices are wrong. They're not right. Just because it comes from the government doesn't mean it's correct. So you need to check your records to see if there's a possibility that the notice was correct. And if it is correct or close to being correct, you got to keep in mind that as a taxpayer, you have rights. Taxpayers have rights. So that doesn't mean that the IRS can act on it without your intervention, without your communication.
Let's try to dispel a couple of myths right up at the start of the interview. Cruella de Vil does not work at the IRS. These are people working at a desk trying to do their job. These are not people that are trying to terrorize the general public. And like you said a moment ago, when the IRS sends out a letter and does say that you owe them money, it doesn't mean that it's correct, and it doesn't mean that you're going to have to pay it. They're basically bringing to your attention something that they're seeing, and they're actually asking for your help and cooperation. If you do owe it, to pay it, but if it's not correct, give me some additional information and we'll make this go away. Would you pick it up from there, John?
Yes, almost always in every letter, there's a time element there. Please respond within 10 days. Please respond within 30 days. And you should try and do so. If it's a significant amount of money, then I think, and you can't respond within that time period, and that comes up if it's a complicated issue, then you should call the IRS. And you should get a collection hold of some sort. Usually they'll give you one, unless it's an issue that's been boiling away for a long period of time. But they'll give you an extra 30 days or so to respond to that issue, and then you can go to work. But beyond that, you have to prepare a response. And the response could be to provide a return. So that could be one reason you got the letter. A response could be to pay an amount of money. And unfortunately, a lot of times people can't afford to pay. So that would entail going into the collections process with IRS. But just by calling IRS and letting them know, it's really important to let IRS know that you're cooperating, that you acknowledge that you received the letter and that you're acting on it. It gets much worse if you don't take a proactive stance and call the IRS or respond in some way.
John,
So,
let's pull on a thread you just touched on in the few remaining moments we have left in the show, and that is picking up the phone and calling the IRS. That's the first step, and you don't need a CPA or an accountant to do that. You also have to know that all you're doing is calling the IRS and acknowledging the letter. Now, if it gets tough, if it gets complex, if it is involving a very large amount, it may indeed be wise to call a tax professional like John Jones. But that doesn't have to be the first step when someone gets a letter. Would you agree with that, John?
I would agree with that because a lot of these letters, again, are mistakes. For instance, somebody transposed a social security number. A tax payment was applied to the wrong period of time. And that can be cleared up by someone acting on their own. It's when, it's when it gets to be more complex and you're not confident that you can resolve it on your own over the phone. That's when you need to call in somebody else.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. We are almost out of time. We're going to have you back a couple of times to keep drilling down on some of these important topics that you and I know are very much misunderstood by the general public. And they're really simple to resolve. But I do want to try to squeeze in one last question.
Sure.
And that is, for a variety of reasons, John, sometimes people don't file tax returns every year. And one of the letters that someone can receive from the IRS is that the IRS said, because you didn't file a tax return several years ago, we prepared one for you and you owe some gargantuan amount of money. And you and I also know, John, that the reason that the IRS did that is because that person didn't prepare the return years ago on time. And the IRS says they owe a lot of money because all the IRS knows about is the income for that year. They don't know about all the deductions. So how would somebody handle a letter from the IRS that says, hey, John, good news. We prepared a tax return for you for 2017 and you owe us $5,000. How should they respond to a letter like that? Real quickly.
Well, they should respond to it this way. They should call the IRS. Let them know that you're working on a return for that particular year. And what you mentioned is called a substitute for a return. So the IRS does have that statutory power to prepare a return for a taxpayer. So it's free. They won't charge you for preparing the tax return.
Free tax service, right?
Yes, that's one way to get free tax service. However, it's not the best way. You can prepare your own return in response, and the IRS will accept that return, and they will assess taxes, penalties, and interest based on the return that you prepare. So for instance, if you're married, you've got 3 children, well, they're going to prepare a return for you as though you're a single person. That would be, so it's to your advantage to prepare that return.
Absolutely. John Jones, CPA John Jones, we are indeed out of time. We're going to have you back again and continue this important discussion. There's so much to talk about regarding taxes and the IRS, and regretfully, we don't have enough time on one episode. But if any of our viewers do want to reach out to you for a free and confidential
Mhm.
consultation about a letter they received or any other tax matter, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
The best way, well, they can send me an email at johnjones@jpjaccounting.net. Or they can call me at 630-926-2183.
Thank you, John Jones, for taking time out of what I know is a very busy day for you. It's tax season, and I can tell our
Sure.
listeners that my friend John Jones really does answer his telephone. So give him a call. He's an easy guy to talk to and quite knowledgeable. This has been another fun and productive episode of Spotlight on Small Business. If you'd like to be a guest on Spotlight, just send an email to team@powernetworkingteam.com and we'll make those arrangements right away. Until next time and next episode, good luck and good networking, everyone.